Welcome to the 46th sequel, which will take us to the history of the Lions of Tsavo, the industrial mission at Nviri, Bulange, Mika Sematimba going for his grand shopping, a new bishop at Mombasa, and lastly, the pastoral visit to Kooki by Bishop Taka. I therefore welcome you. In 1898, the Leyri line, the Uganda Leyri line, reached its construction, reached Tsavo. Tsavo was an area west of Mombasa. Now, in this particular place, there were some very strange lions, and these lions distracted the construction of the Uganda Leyri. This was in 1898. These lions appeared to be spiritually possessed. Why? Because even when they were shot using guns, they could still escape unhurt. They didn't die. Instead, if a lion was attacking its prey, and these were human beings, they would be very successful in killing the human beings, despite the fact that somebody would be shooting at them. They were not dying. So they were therefore said to be ghosts, but ghost-possessed lions. Eventually, the Tsavo man-eating lions were killed. So if they were ghosts, how come they were killed later on? Now that's a question I can't answer. And today, the story of these Tsavo lions, Tsavo man-eating lions, is a subject of textbooks, so you can go look for these textbooks and read to your satisfaction. As a matter of fact, some have even gone ahead to do a Hollywood movie in memory of these man-eating lions of Tsavo. So that's all I want to say about these lions. They cannot escape our celebrations of our church as the Leyri construction got underway in Mombasa. 2 years later, there was that problem of the man-eating lions. And it is believed that close to 135 human beings were eaten by the lions. Quite strange. Right, now let's visit the village called Nviri Bulange. Nviri Bulange is a village, or was a village, in Mengo. And we are going to visit this village in respect to the Church Missionary Society first industrial center. They used to call it the industrial mission. And as we talk about the industrial mission of Nviri Bulange, one name must be coming up all the time. He was a man born in Denmark. I believe he was Danish, judging by his name. He was called Christene, not Christine, but Christene Eskilden, or if you want, Eskildesen. And of course, Borup. We ended up calling him Borup. It was much easier compared to the three names, Christene, Eskilden, and Borup. So Borup. Now this name is very historic, because since the days of Alexander Mackay printing press machine and his engineering products and skills of the wheel carts, no industrialization had actually taken place until 1895. That is when a missionary called J.B. Pavis started it at Nviri Bulange. So it was not started by Borup. Somebody earlier had started this mission industrial center at Nviri Bulange. However, in 1899, another person comes in, a missionary called Christine Eskeren Borup. When he arrives at Nviri Bulange, the industrial mission changes hands, and it gets a rapid growth. In what? In printing, in carpentry, in blacksmithing, in bricks making, and K. Borup actually resided in that same place of Nviri Bulange Industrial Mission because he was the superintendent. He looked after all the workshops. He looked after all the dormitories of the workers. And he also looked after the actual classrooms of those who were being trained in this particular industry. And the inventory at the time revealed the following properties: that there was the Christine Escaresen Borup residence, so there was a residential house. There was one long building with various workshops. All of this in Nviri Bulange. Yeah. There were 4 hand printing presses. There was a huge cutting machine. Call it timber, call it a metalwork. It was a cutting machine. And then lastly, there was a huge sewing machine for books. Today they call it binding. So there was a binding machine, but this one was using wires. Yeah. So the British government, or the colonialists, or the protectorate government at that time, they used to bring their own work at the Industrial Mission Press to print their own documents. So you see, the church and the state were working hand in hand, were working in support of each other. Now, this Danish man, Borup Christian Escaresen, I've already told you he was a Danish man, but a member of the Church Christian Missionary Society. The society tried to take on people with various professionals. He was a married man. The records show that he was married to Anna Maud. Second time we are finding the name Maud. We will find it in future sequels. Now, his wife Anna Maud, they had married in UK sometimes later, before actually after he had arrived in Uganda. He went back to Europe and he married. He had a private residence, this Borup. He resided in Kawanda. I've already told you that his mission station had a residence for him. That was an official residence. But then he developed and even purchased a private estate. And his private estate was at Kawanda. So those of you who have lived long in Kawanda, if you hear the name Borup, don't be surprised. Don't wonder how something that belongs to a missionary is somehow in Kawanda. That is the connection. Borup privately bought the land there. As a matter of fact, when he had just come, he started in Ngogwe. The place was not that suitable for him, or despite the fact that it had access to water. Then he came to Mengo, and finally they took him to Toro. You know, Toro was such an interesting historical center for missionaries, a darling of Bishop Tucker. But then finally in January 1899, he decided that the right place for the industrial mission would be Mengo. And that's how he ended up at a place called Nviri Bulange, which was now a place to be claimed by the Church Missionary Society. As we shall see in future sequels, he was with us for several years, and he became such a darling of industrialism. I am not ashamed to call him the successor to Alexander Mackay when it comes to industrialization. So much for Borup. In March 1899, the Regents, and this is equal rulers of Buganda at the time, Apollo Kagwa, Stanlas Mogwanya, Kisingiri Kizito, they sent their special envoy to the coast, Mika Sematimba, and they gave him a lot of money. They gave him 4,000 rupees. That was a lot of money at the time. They also gave him up to 80 porters. Now, all this money they gave him to go do shopping. Shopping in Zanzibar. He was supposed to take a ship from Zanzibar and go down to another very important Portuguese colonialist coast city called Kilwa. It is in modern Mozambique today. So he was supposed to go all the way to Kilwa and then finally return to Mombasa, and then of course carry whatever he would have purchased for them. I won't go into the details of what they wanted to purchase, but for those of you who wonder that when people get into power, they start shopping in New York, they start shopping in India, they start getting planes and get treatment in Malaysia. It looks like it began a little bit earlier. Here are the three regents in power. And where are they shopping? As far as Kilwa. Actually, Kilwa was such an important trade center under the Portuguese. And here they are. They want merchandise from there. The things which are being sold by the Aldina Visram shops are not good enough. As people in power, they demanded better. And so, Mika Sematimba takes off. And while at Frere town, I don't know whether I've told you, but he was such a man who puts on like Europeans. He used to carry himself like a European. It's only the accent which refused, but otherwise if you could even do the accent of the language, that would be perfect. And so he was now returning there, and you remember he had lost a wife. I think he lost a wife in 1897 during the Nubian Mutiny. She died at Mengo. And when he reached Frere town, he, as a black man who carries himself around like a Muzungu, got an admirer. And the admirer was a European girl. Her name was Elizabeth. Elizabeth was a daughter of a missionary at the Frere Town Mission Center. And actually cathedral, not only a mission center, it was the cathedral of Mombasa Diocese, of the new Mombasa Diocese. Now this was the daughter of the Reverend Ashmael Samuel. And of course, one thing led to the other, and before we knew it, at Frere Town, Sematimba married Elizabeth. The first native Ugandan to marry a pure European girl became Mika Sematimba, Uganda's special envoy to the coast of East Africa. In 1899, with so much money and with so many porters, not for him, money was for his bosses, but why not enjoy some of it? For don't you have your own allowances? Don't you have your own per diem? Hey. So the man gets married to a Muzungu. At Frere Town, Mika Sematimba found the new bishop of Mombasa Diocese. His name was the Right Reverend William George Peel. He's a man who will make history in future sequels, as we shall read. But now, for the first time in 1899, after a 2-year wait, they get their very first bishop of Mombasa Diocese. No longer Eastern Africa, no longer Eastern Equatorial Diocese, but now Mombasa Diocese, the pioneer bishop, William George Peel. And now, back here to Uganda in 1899, Bishop Tucker begins a pastoral visit, this time to Sese Islands. And after there, he went on to Kooki. And that was around April 1899. He used the Sango Bay waters. Those of you who are followers of this sequel, you remember the Sango Bay waters used by Ham Mukasa during the Kabula exile to smuggle ivory tusks and to smuggle in arms by Charles Stokes. Yeah, that was the Sango Bay waters, very important in the history of Buganda and the church. It was there that Bishop Tucker learned of the arrest of Kabaka Mwanga II and Kabarega. But the bishop proceeded to Sese, where he found missionaries Gordon and his wife, and he also found a native priest, the Reverend Henry Mukasa. So there was a confirmation of candidates who had converged on Mukasa Island. So they converged on one island because Sese is so many smaller islands and of course Kalangala, the bigger one. But they now all gathered on Bukasa Island, and that's where the bishop confirmed them. He confirmed 86 candidates, and the date was the 30th of April, 1899. The bishop then proceeded on to Bubembe Island, where a separate confirmation of 78 candidates was also held, and that was on the 2nd of May, 1899. And that ends the 46th sequel. May the good Lord bless us all.